What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I am your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
We got a killer episode as always, so thank you so much for tuning in today. This is a really informative episode, and this is really going to help you with maintaining a lean body, with your future cut, with dieting in general. So take it away, Kyle.
So yeah, this was inspired, and actually we get asked it by a lot of people, but someone specifically had said, hey, you know, my appetite's like a furnace, like it doesn't stop. I don't know what to do. And it's amazing because I feel like these tips can help you so much. And especially for those of you who are in a consistent calorie deficit, you're looking to lose fat, you know, it can get challenging, right? And I'd say by making sure that you're satiated properly and that you're not always starving, there's so many different things we consider, but it makes it more sustainable and it makes you just have better success. So I'm going to start with number one. Something that I think is very, very important is just honestly eating mindfully. And I have to remind myself of this consistently because I remember back when I was looking into some different things in terms of how much we consume in terms of like when we're eating mindfully or when we're not mindful. And so, for example, I remember seeing some studies saying that if we're actually always watching something, and I still can do this here and there, especially as I'm on my bulk, I just find that I'm not the greatest with this personally, but I will say anyone who does this like will experience a very big difference. It's, let's say, you know, maybe 30% increase in calories because you're always, I guess you could say, doing something while you're eating. And this is where I think some people struggle is you're always watching TV. Some people will do it while they're driving. Some people will do it when they're distracted, and you don't realize how much extra you can actually consume. And it's just something that may leave you feeling unsatiated afterwards just due to some distractions. So I will say there's a lot of things you can change. I would just say eating slower, you know, using some smaller utensils can help as well. Lots of different strategies, even setting a timer to force yourself to eat slower. But I will say the easiest fix is just to do it while you're just chilling, while you're having a conversation, and, you know, just sitting at a table, I think will definitely help out as well. But that's going to be number one and something that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. These are still things I work on. I mean, it's way harder when you are watching with TV. I love doing it too, so it's something I try to work against. But even just being intentional with your eating will improve it so much. And I guess if we go into our next one, and arguably the biggest one, is to actually eat better food. So when you're eating healthier food, it's going to offer more satiety. So especially protein-dense food, fibrous food, whole food, it's going to be a lot more filling. If you think of when you've had like a really big stir fry or a huge salad, or you've just had a ton of chicken, you get stuffed, like seriously full. Even yesterday we had a burger. Actually, we went out, we had some calories saved. We had a burger. That burger is probably like 500, 600, maybe 700 calories. But it just like is a smaller burger. I could probably eat 5 of them, like no problem. I could go all day. I'm someone who can eat a lot of food. They're easy to eat. There's a lot of oil. There's probably cooked with some butter. It's a little bit greasy. The meat's a little fatty. It's super easy to pound those down. The satiety it offered was very minimal. Whereas when you think of when you've had that really hearty, healthy salad, it stuffs you. It's super hard. So that's where you really do yourself a disservice, really having low quality food. And I've used the budget example before too. If you have a huge budget, you can kind of get away by getting more luxurious items. But you have a really small budget, you need to be really mindful and doing different things like thrifting and really buying things that are a little cheaper. They'll make it way easier on you, whereas you'll destroy your budget if you have a big thing. And it's very similar with calories and satiety, because if I'm having 3,000 calories, or if I'm cutting it, let's say 2,500, and I have a really low quality meal, simple example would be like a burger. Like let's say I had a Big Mac and fries, it'd be probably about 1,500 calories. That is not going to be filling. I'm going to be like, what the heck? I'm going to be so hungry I can't think. It's going to be brutal. And even if I have 1,000 calories of really healthy food, it's going to be hard. Now, if I do that all week, it's going to be really hard to be successful with it. Whereas if I really aim to be at that 80-20 or 90-10 or 95-5, you're really deep in a deficit. It's going to make it so much easier. Things like fiber, it bonds with water. It's going to hack to having you be more full, really having a ton of vegetables and a ton of volume, like 200 calories of a really like kind of low calorie vegetable is going to be very filling. It's going to be a ton of volume physically in your stomach. So the easiest thing you can do is really just improve your overall diet quality, have a ton of whole foods, and like it really is a difference maker. It can make cutting on lower calories way easier. I don't know if you like on Instagram, you'll see all these hacks. It'll be like crazy 300 calorie meal, and it will essentially be a lot of lean protein, a ton of vegetables, but it just looks like this massive portion of food. And even for me, that's how I've kind of tried to restructure my cuts, by really saying like, what's going to give me the most bang for my buck, the most energy, the most quality, the most fullness. And like, especially if you are someone who has a big like hunger disposition, like even myself, I can get super hungry. That is a really, really big one.
Honestly, if we were to just leave you with something today where it's like, hey, this is the thing, this is the tip. Like Josh said, arguably the most important thing. And I just think a lot of people overlook it. They think they need different strategies and, you know, drink sparkling water and try to have more tea. And like, we will get into that, and those things can obviously help you out. But this is where I think a lot of people struggle. And sometimes I'll look through and, you know, offer some, I guess like feedback in terms of someone who may be a little bit more hungry, looking through some nutritional logs and all that other stuff. And I find that I will sometimes see quite a bit of fluff, like things that essentially just don't give you good bang for your buck. And I'll just use, let's say, 2 Oreos as an example. I think it might be 100 and mid 100 calories, like I think 140, 150. And while they do taste really good, that is an example similar to what Josh was saying for the burger. Like those will leave you craving more, and you will feel like you literally just had nothing versus like that bag of carrots, which is like incredible. So just getting rid of that fluff definitely helps, and just having high quality foods like 90, 95%, even 100. Like if you feel like you're really struggling, just go full healthy and you will see a big difference. But number 3 is just understanding the difference between tolerable and intolerable hunger. Now, I think sometimes people set out to lose body fat, be in a deficit, cut some body weight, and just lose fat, but they expect it to be like all perfect, you know, just like I'm going to be 100% satisfied, you know, and unfortunately that's usually not the way it is. Like essentially when you are in a deficit, so that's eating less than your body wants to be essentially satisfied, you will experience a little bit of hunger. Now, there is a big difference between someone who, you know, has that like, you know, essentially a tolerable hunger, you're eating to about 80% satisfied. You know, there's that feeling where it's like, I could have a little bit more, and usually I would, but I'm going to stop, right? You know, there's times where you may go to bed and just feel a little bit hungry. You may wake up feeling a little bit, but usually it's kind of after those meals where you're like, I'm not stuffed, right? Like most people typically are. Now, intolerable is to the point where it's unbearable. You know, you're just starving. You feel like your quality of life is being affected. And we never want anybody to get to this state. I will say sometimes it's the competitors and those people who are doing those very drastic things that will feel this way. But even as coaches, like our goal is to create a system where you're as full as possible. We fill you up with protein, high quality foods, you know, focus on those fiber things, like all these things. And as a coach, we'll take a look at these. And when someone says, hey, I'm feeling this type of way and I'm feeling a bit hungry, okay, here's what we can modify. But the main thing is that we want to create a way that's as sustainable as possible. And sometimes, like I'd say, people are like need to improve their quality of food, but at the same time, there are some people who just have like too big of a deficit where it's like it's just unbearable, and we also need to make that change to give you something more realistic. And that's why as a coach we can walk you through that. And I would say just knowing the difference makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, and even I love Jocko Willink in his book. He really just mentioned too how kind of soft we've come towards our hunger because we've been so blessed. Like if I, even for a second, I get hungry or bored, I could go to the convenience store, I could DoorDash food, I could go to a restaurant, I could cook something. Like we're blessed with this surplus of calories, and it's easy to give into that. But there's nothing wrong with like being a little bit hungry. And even Kyle will get more into this like in number 5, but like even just allowing yourself reasonable gaps of time. Like at my breakfast, I usually will eat like our meal with Kyle after training at 11. I'll usually eat, like I call it my afternoon meal, around like 2 to 3. Then I'll usually have my big meal at like 5 to 6. And then because I'm bulking, I usually have to do like one more snacky type meal type thing. But like in between those times, sometimes like, oh, I'm hungry, I want a donut. I'm like, okay, I don't need this. Like it's natural. I just ate. Like let's be within reason here. So even understanding hunger levels and like having patience and really understanding too boredom, like in its effects it has. Like if you're just laying around watching TV all night, that's the hardest because you just want food. You're just like, I want more joy with like this relaxation. I'm bored, I'm hungry, and it's hard to really understand understand if you are hungry. And I find like one of the best measures of hunger is like when you're super busy, like oftentimes you'll eventually be like, I need to eat something because you've been so busy. But when you're bored, you're always like really, really aware and hungry. And even for me, like one test I'll do sometimes too, if I think I'm hungry at a weird time or I'm at my calories or whatever, I'll be like, okay, am I going to go to the fridge and eat a bunch of broccoli? And like 9 times out of 10, I'm like, not a chance. Or some other healthy, quote unquote, more boring food. It's not going to happen. Like you're just hungry because you're like, oh, I want this tasty, delicious thing. So this is a big one. It's something you need to play and understand with yourself. And like the more you can kind of control that and like really get away from that, like, I want this, where's my reward of my food, you'll have a better balance and you'll have a lot more control. And I think the more you can be comfortable with those like times of not eating, and like you can survive like a week plus with no food, like we're really dramatic about it. And I myself am horrible for this. I was way worse in the previous years because I used to really stress about when my next meal would be, what it would be. If I don't eat in 3 hours, am I going to be in a ton of trouble? And there's a difference between being excessive with it and being in control. Sometimes with Kyle, like even for our buddy's wedding, I'm like, this guy has no plan for lunch. I know this guy never eats lunch. We need to have a lunch because I'm going to be miserable. Like that's different. But there's times sometimes like you're at an airport, there's no good food and you have a 2-hour flight and it's 2 hours there and you're like, oh, I'm not going to eat for 4 hours. It's not going to kill you to not eat for 4 hours. Like we kind of got to take a step back here. And like I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, but I went through like a solid cut. Like we kind of were doing like a really slow cut probably for like half a year there, which was killer and really awesome. But I feel like it really kind of grounded me into that position of balance. And I just wanted to add that on to what Kyle said, because like that has been game changer for me. And as someone who really does used to kind of have this crazy hungriness towards me, I found these things have just been so helpful. And like another big one too is really minimizing empty calories / liquid calories. So Kyle's going to get into this in more detail in the next one. I know I'm hyping it up, but I think it is a big one. But even if you're like drinking a lot of your calories by way of like sugary drinks, alcoholic drinks, really intense mixed drinks, like you are really limiting yourself, because like if you're bulking, it's great. You can slap in a lot of calories. It's potentially not as filling. Maybe you're having like a lot of cream, like even cream in your coffee can be several hundred calories in the day. And like if you are on a budget, like you need to be aware of these things. And like if you really love something, like let it be that treat, let it be that thing you look forward to. Like even in my cut, I'd love like Reese's Big Cups. It's like one of my favorite things. They're 200 calories each. The pack is 400. I can't afford to waste 400 calories on that. It's not filling, it's not any of that. So I would have one and I would enjoy it. I know a lot of people who have one piece of chocolate every night. Like there's nothing wrong with like partitioning things out. Even like I love these Nerds clusters. They're super good. It's just like sugary candy. It's not like any good form of satiety. It's not going to be filling, but they're fun. Like you should still be able to have those things you like. And that's that 80-20, that 90-10. But even for me, I think it's 6 servings per container. Each serving is 100 and something calories. So I literally took it and I put in 6 Ziplocs and like I enjoyed it over a week, as opposed to just eating 500 calories of sugar, which is not going to be satisfying to me whatsoever. So really like establishing that and trying to minimize it, especially if you struggle with hunger. If you're like totally good, you can use that 80-20. Like if you're like, I'm full enough, I'm losing weight, this is easy. But if you're feeling really hungry and it's causing you to perhaps deviate from your diet, these are things you need to be aware of. And yes, it is harder, but that is what a deficit is. And you can make it a lot easier on yourself if you're aware of these things.
Yeah, and I think some people may not like me for this, but like those Starbucks drinks, I'll sit in there and work.
Death sentence.
Yeah, work for a few hours, and I'm just like, once again, never judgmental, but I do realize it adds up quickly. Like a lot quicker than people realize. And I think sometimes where people struggle is that they'll have like a 500 calorie whatever there, maybe more,
get a little snack,
a little snack. Yeah, maybe a muffin. 400
calories.
Maybe a glass of something at the end of the night or whatever. And be like, okay, well, I'm struggling with hitting my calories. That's where a lot of people will be like, it's so hard. I'm so hungry. I can't stand it. And then there's some people who be like, well, I've hit it, but I'm like so hungry and starving and I can't bear it. And they don't realize that they're kind of putting themselves in a very tough situation, because they're still enjoying their fun thing and they're like, I love it, that's my thing. But you do have to make those sacrifices, and it's not that, it's like you can find ways to make it easy, but you're not going to be able to just have everything that you imagine. And I think what I really liked, I was kind of jumping into number 5 here, is cutting out the mindless snacking and just having regular consistent meals. Like our bodies want to be consistent, and the times that you just like, once again, there will be times where you're hungry, or like, what Josh was mentioning. I really do like that like concept of remembering and telling yourself like, I can go without it and it's not the end of the world, because it is crazy when you think like how long we actually can go. Even Jocko Willink like actually said he'll do these regular, like very long fasts just to force himself to remember that, hey, I can actually fully function. And he says I would do my workout, I would do everything, I'd be totally fine, and like my body would operate like perfect, which is pretty cool, because whenever I remember that and I'm in a tough situation, I'm like, man, that's true, like I'll be totally fine. But typically speaking, just for, the day-to-day stuff, I will say having those consistent, like regular times that you have your stuff, if possible, and just really cutting out like grabbing a bunch of snacks and just like, it adds up so quickly. And I will say having balanced meals and whatnot definitely stabilizes our blood sugar levels, and it definitely prevents having extreme hunger, which will obviously lead to overeating. So it is something to consider. I'm a firm believer of it, and I try to just be as consistent as possible. Like even my Greek yogurt, the same time, the same type of stuff. I feel like it just kind of puts myself into a good rhythm, and I get to know myself very well, and it's what works. So that's number 5.
110%. And this was a big one for me. And I just think even like minimizing snacking, like actually really they attribute a lot of the modern obesity towards snacking, because it's so easy. And like Kyle said, the Starbucks drink is just such a good example, because you're like, it's just a drink, and people get like a venti frappe, whatever, and it's like 500 milligrams of caffeine. It's a ton of sugar. It's like, not that any, like, caffeine has its purpose, sugar has its purpose. You can enjoy a high calorie Starbucks drink, but you got to make it fit. But oftentimes this is in surplus to everything else they're having in the day, and it's that sneaky extra 600 calories. You do that for a week, really, really weak math, but that's like almost a pound, right? Like, and you consider you do that over 10 weeks, that could be 10 pounds, and then the compounding effect of that. And then as we get into our next one, sleep, you're having so much caffeine that you're just wired throughout the day. Your sleep sucks, and when your sleep sucks, you're suppressing key hormones like ghrelin and leptin. There's a reason actually sleep deprived people actually gain more weight. And that's because when you are sleep deprived, your ghrelin shoots up, which essentially is a hormone that is responsible for making you more hungry. And then leptin, the opposite of that, Jekyll and Hyde, makes you feel more full, actually decreases. So you're doing yourself that disservice. But you can see how these things all come full circle. The odd time when I get my Starbucks birthday drink, I love getting one of those crazy drinks. I'm like, this is so good. It's like a dessert, but you kind of need to treat it like that. And like, you can have fun snacks, but even the concept of like always needing food, and most snack food is not positive snack food. I try to readjust it. Like I've been trying to, like for my afternoon meal type thing, I'll do like I really like Brazilian nuts. Like they're kind of like a superfood, if you will. So I've been having them. I'll have like this high protein cheese. Because my calories are so high, we'll do like a more simple cereal sometimes to really just jack in some carbs. My son's like hooked on Rice Krispies, so I have those around. And once again, it's not healthy food, but I have such a surplus calories that I can afford to have it. If I'm cutting, I'm not wasting 100 calories on a Rice Krispie. There's just no chance. It doesn't work that way. So take all this info as nuanced info, but the deeper you are in a deficit, the more you should clean it up, the easier it will be. And you really do need to manage these extra factors, which is number 6, like sleep and stress. They're both just horrible catalysts for you to gain more weight. It puts you in a dangerous position too, where you're going to be more tempted. And just know a lot of the times, like food is not the solution. Like pigging out is just going to make you feel worse. You'll feel better for 2 seconds to feel worse after. It's like if you're like, I'm going to go out and get hammered, you're going to feel better for like a little bit, and then you're going to feel absolutely brutal. You're going to just question every decision you've ever made. And that's not to say you can't be like, I'm going to enjoy a really reasonable amount of a meal, make it fit, help it. But I just find it's these extremes that really mess people up. And the more you can take care of yourself with the boring stuff, like getting good sleep, eating good food, being in control, limiting excessive eating, still having balance, like still enjoying the Starbucks drink here and there if you want it, but analyzing like what habits are detrimental, the holes in your game, the holes in your eating that are making it hard for you to have satiety in your food, actually eating more vegetables. It's boring to say, but it is a huge difference maker. Really being on top of your water, really staying hydrated, like doing these things. And like, I'm glad we kind of got into some of the psychology and our personal psychology within this really does make a difference, and really finding what works for you. Like the more you can do these things, the better it will be. Healthy breakfast is a bonus one, 6.5. Like I've just loved Greek yogurt. It's been over a year I've been having it now, and it's like It's probiotic too. It's just really good on your stomach. It's really light. It really forces you to eat it slowly. As I've had more calories now, like sometimes I'll even add some brown sugar, which once again is jacking up the calories. Not very great for satiety, but when you're in a big surplus, it's a helpful tool. I'll up my granola. I try a bunch of different fruits. Blueberries, strawberries are my go-to. Then I'll also do pomegranate. Those are of course going to bring up my calories as well. When I'm deeper in a deficit, I even need to be mindful of fruit, and I'll have more veggies. But like, case in point, you can see how you can use these tools any which way, and as your goals adjust and the situation you're in adjusts, you should do these things. And once again, these are all things we do help you with in coaching. We make it abundantly clear and simple so that you can see better results faster without any confusion or uncertainty. And if you haven't jumped in for our New Year's challenge for one-on-one coaching, as well as the opportunity to be in the challenge to win over $5,000 of prizes, see the change you deserve, and just really make amazing strides in your journey in 2024. This is your chance to do it. DM us on Instagram the keyword challenge to @ColossusFit. That is ColossusFit with the keyword challenge.